Hello everyone and welcome to ABCGH Spoilers channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Willow Tait, previously portrayed as the sympathetic nurse and dedicated mother on General Hospital, has plummeted into a chilling realm of violence and deception, leaving viewers stunned. What began as a fairly simple case of attempted murder against her husband, Cain, has quickly escalated with rumors and teasers indicating that she has now targeted a second victim in her unrelenting desire of control and independence. The identity of this second victim has proven particularly unbelievable, taking the drama in Port Charles to new heights. It all goes back to the night Drew was shot. For months, the mystery hovered over the community like a dark cloud. Drew, an ambitious lawmaker with ties to the Tait-Caine lineage, had been assassinated in a planned assassination. Initially, evidence went in several directions. Suspicion landed on Willow's ex-husband, Michael Corinthos, because of their violent custody fights and residual resentments. Michael had motivation, opportunity, and a track record of protecting his family at all costs. However, as the trial progressed, cracks surfaced in the narrative. Witnesses such as Trina Robinson and her friend Kai Taylor presented important testimony. They had been near Willow's house on the night of the incident and remembered hearing a distinct ringtone echoing at the exact instant shots were fired. Many people dismissed that minor detail at first, but it eventually became the thread that connected everything. The courtroom scenes were dramatic and filled with expectation. Willow sat still and collected, her face a mask of innocence and vulnerability. She had always nailed the character of the frail survivor. First battling leukemia and then negotiating complicated relationships with Nina Reeves, her biological mother, and eventually Drew. Her defense relied mainly on emotional pleas, portraying her as a woman driven to the edge by Drew's domineering behavior, political ambitions, and the way he had injected himself into her and her children's lives. The blackout defense was used, implying that she had no memory of the incident, which was possibly caused by trauma or stress. Alexis Davis, her attorney, fought courageously, destroying parts of her own closing argument in a desperate attempt to persuade the jurors. But the verdict was swift, not guilty. Fans were in amazement as the foreman read the remarks. Willow walked free. Her acquittal a surprising victory that many deemed a miscarriage of justice. Drew, still reeling from the initial gunshot, remained by her side in public gestures of solidarity, toasting to their future as if the tragedy had ended. Champagne was poured, smiles were shared, and for a little period, it appeared like reconciliation was conceivable. However, behind closed doors, the truth festered. Willow confessed to Drew in private, her words tinged with chilly finality. She admits to pressing the trigger, motivated by fury, terror, and a desperate desire to restore her liberty. Drew's deceit, his use of their marriage as leverage in business and politics had pushed her beyond reason. However, independence did not bring peace. Instead, it kindled something darker. Willow made her move just hours after the verdict. While they were celebrating alone, Drew raised his glass, speaking of brighter days ahead, as she circled behind him. In one rapid motion, she produced a syringe obtained via her nursing access and injected it into his neck. Drew slumped, grasping the injection site, eyes wide with betrayal and uncertainty. "Everything's going to work out, Drew," she said, echoing the deceptive lines he had previously used on her. He writhed on the floor, gasping as the substance passed through his veins. Speculation was rampant. Was it potassium chloride, a medication that might trigger a catastrophic stroke or cardiac arrest while simulating natural causes, or something slower and more agonizing, intended to render him paralyzed rather than dead instantly? Willow dialed 911 and paramedics arrived, her portrayal flawless, tears gushing, voice shaking as she played the panicked wife. At General Hospital, doctors worked quickly to stabilize Drew. He appeared to have experienced a massive stroke which resulted in aphasia, partial paralysis, and hints of a coma. Lucas Jones provided dismal updates, implying that long-term care outside of Port Charles may be required. Willow hovered at the bedside, the embodiment of devotion, even as she quietly disposed of the syringe and hospital rubbish to eliminate evidence. Alexis witnessed a portion of the cover-up and confronted Willow with demands for the truth, but Willow responded with controlled calm. This second attack represented the escalation that fans had dreaded. The initial shooting was disturbing enough, but surviving only to face another attempt by the same person, his wife, took the story into genuinely dark ground. Drew's life was in the balance. Would he die becoming Willow's irreversible second victim? Or would he survive to expose her? Spoilers hinted at the latter, with Drew clinging to life, possibly trapped in a locked-in state or gradually recovering enough to point fingers. However, the second victim phrase in circulating rumors suggested a more final, stunning identity. Theories erupted in fan chats. Some suspected the second victim was not Drew, but rather someone who posed a fresh threat to Willow's freedom. Kai Taylor emerged as a leading candidate. He and Trina had heard Willow's ringtone and were piecing together her guilt. Kai's increasing suspicion made him dangerous. If he challenged her, demanding answers or threatening to call the cops, Willow may attack again to silence him. His youth, relationship to Trina, and outsider status made him vulnerable. No deep familiar ties to defend him. No immediate suspicion directed elsewhere. Willow's targeting of a young man who happened to be in the wrong location at the wrong time added to the agony. It changed her from a wronged wife to a serial predator, eager to kill anyone who threatened her new existence. Others speculated that Nina Reeves could become collateral. Nina, Willow's mother, had initially supported for Drew's marriage, but recent disclosures have damaged their relationship. If Nina discovered the injection, her fear could spark a conflict. Willow, who is already damaged by her history, may regard Nina as yet another impediment to regaining WI and Amelia. The transgression would sever a mother-daughter bond, turning fatal. The most surprising twist, however, was the potential that the second victim was linked to Drew in unexpected ways. Perhaps Willow's actions had unexpected consequences. Perhaps the injection caused Drew's death, but not before he implicated someone else, or perhaps a complication killed an innocent bystander, such as a medical professional intervening. Deaths in soap operas frequently have a knock-on effect, claiming further lives due to shock or accident. The community buzzed with uneasiness as Willow disposed of evidence while maintaining her facade. Dante Falconer reopened investigations, suspiciously watching Michael at DJ's Teen Turner's request. Michael, who had already been framed, was now under additional scrutiny, his life disintegrating even further. Nah. Struggled with maternal guilt, divided between protecting her daughter and pursuing justice. Chase, Willow's former flame, observed from a distance, astounded by how far the lady he once loved had fallen. This storyline has reshaped Willow. Caitlin McMullen's portrayal progressed from gentle vulnerability to frigid determination, her gaze hardening with each deliberate stride. The actress has spoken of the exhilarating dark turn which involves embracing the complexities of a character who is no longer redeemable in simple terms. Fans are highly divided. Is Willow a villain today? Irredeemable, or a sorrowful figure shattered by years of tragedy and manipulation? Her leukemia battle, Harmony's secrets, Michael's custody battles, and Drew's control all contributed to this eruption. The fallout guarantees greater mayhem. If Drew lives, his testimony has the potential to completely destroy Willow. If he dies, the probe will intensify, potentially discovering collaborators or hidden objectives. Whispers of a broader plot persist, with someone giving the pistol and poison, implying Willow wasn't completely alone. Scout's disbelief at the rumors implies that even children may be affected, encountering tragedies no one expected. Port Charles has seen its fair share of darkness. Mob battles, serial killers, familial betrayals, but Willow's story is unique. The lovely nurse who fought for her children now fights with fatal precision. And the identities of her victims are stunning given that they were once her closest pals. Drew, the guy she married out of hope, became her target twice. The second effort, so soon after her acquit, demonstrates her desperation. No headlines are required. The story emerges in quiet, horrifying moments. A needle glinting, a body collapsing, and a lady smiling through falsehoods. As the episodes go, every glance and whispered exchange has significance. Willow's path darkens further, and her unexpected deeds cause everyone to question trust, love, and justice. The improbable has become a reality, and the identity of the second victim, whether Drew dies or someone else does, will haunt Port Charles for years. The drama builds relentlessly, with each revelation pulling back layers of duplicity, leaving viewers breathless for what will happen next in the spiral of vengeance and survival. Night pressed down on Port Charles like a held breath, causing even the water to hesitate before flowing forth. The city lights reflected in shattered streaks on the dark river, which trembled with each ripple. In that unsettling silence, a secret pulsed, raw, dangerous, and threatening to tear people apart. Willow Tait stood alone in the modest apartment she'd been using as a sanctuary, her back to the door and her chest rising too quickly. Her hands still shook. No matter how many times she cleaned them, she could feel it. The recollection of warmth turning cold, the crushing weight of what she'd done pressing against her bones again. The first time nearly ruined her. What about the second time? The second time was scheduled to be for her burial. She slid down the door and sat on the floor, knees drawn to her chest. Her breath came in shallow spurts, and she pressed her forehead against her knees, shutting her eyes shut as if to erase the vision that had burned itself into her consciousness. It did not. It never did. I didn't mean to, she said quietly into the darkness, like if no one was listening. I swear I didn't. But the reality was cruelly clear. This time she couldn't claim it was an accident. She could not hide behind terror or circumstance. This time there was one terrifying moment when she knew exactly what she was doing, and she'd done it anyway. Across town, Michael Corinthos stood on the balcony of the Cain home, clutching his phone and staring at a missed call notification that made his stomach twist. Willow. Again. This was the 7th call she hadn't answered tonight. Something wasn't right. He could feel it, just like he did when the first nightmare began. Back then, he had ignored his inclination. He had trusted Willow's soothing voice, her tears, and her assurance that everything was fine. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Michael turned and walked back inside, his mouth set with purpose. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever Willow was hiding this time was bigger, darker, and far more dangerous than anyone suspected. The fluorescent lights in General Hospital hummed overhead as Elizabeth Weber stepped out of an assessment room, rubbing the back of her neck. The shift had been brutal. Too many patients, too many emergencies, and too much blood. She was about to go home when she sensed the tension in the air and the nurses whispering at the station. "Have you heard?" One of them murmured. "Another body," another said. "They say it looks familiar." Elizabeth's heart skipped. "What do you mean familiar?" she inquired, coming closer. The nurse paused. "They haven't released the name yet, but the injuries. It is comparable to the other scenario. The one from months ago." A chill ran up Elizabeth's spine. She remembered the case vividly. The hushed whispers, the discrepancies, and the way the truth seemed just out of grasp. Everyone had convinced himself that it was over. Solved. Done. Apparently, it wasn't. Detective Dante Falconer looked over the crime scene, his face somber as the forensics team worked around him. The victim lay covered under a white sheet. But Dante didn't need to see his face to know that this case was about to explode. The similarities were overly precise, too intentional. "This isn't random," he muttered quietly to Chase, who was standing next to him. "Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." Chase nodded, his eyes black. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Dante exhaled slowly. "I'm thinking we were wrong the first time." When the victim's identity was finally established, it shook Port Charles like an earthquake. Harmony Miller, or rather, what remained of her. The news quickly spread throughout the city, leaving shock and horror in its wake. Harmony, who had already died, mourned, and been a ghost in so many lives, had somehow become a victim again. Or at least that's how Willow felt when she heard the name on the evening news. She looked at the television, paralyzed, while the anchor rambled on about renewed investigations and unanswered questions. Her reflection in the dim screen peered back at her, eyes wide and pale, unrecognizable. Harmony, her mother, the woman who had molded her life with deception, manipulation, and twisted love. Willow clasped one palm to her mouth, resisting the need to scream. She had convinced herself that killing Harmony was a form of mercy. A desperate attempt to defend herself, break the pattern of abuse, and survive. She had dealt with the truth like an open wound, raw but bearable. However, the second death, the second victim, had nothing to do with mercy. It was all about terror. Fear of being exposed. Fear of losing everything. Fear of the truth coming to light. Michael appeared at Willow's door shortly after midnight. He banged once, twice, and then harder when there was no response. "Willow, I know you're in there," he said. "Please." Willow's heart thumped so loudly that she was convinced he could hear it. Tears flowed down her cheeks as she put her back against the wall, caught between the urgent want to leap into his arms and the paralyzing fear of what may happen if she did. Eventually, she opened the door. Michael's chest tightened just looking at her. "What happened?" he asked softly. Willow shook her head, unable to talk. She stepped aside to let him enter, then closed the door behind him with a last click that sounded far too abrupt. "I can't do this anymore," she finally admitted, her voice breaking. Michael's gaze probed her face. "I can't keep pretending." "Pretending about what?" The word stuck in her throat, sharp and unyielding. She wrapped her arms about herself and rocked gently. "There was another person," she murmured. Michael froze. "Another what?" "Another victim?" Willow remarked, her tears falling freely. "I did not want this to happen. I swear I didn't." "But it did." The room appeared to tilt. "Willow?" Michael asked slowly and carefully. "What are you saying?" She glanced up at him, actually looked at him, and the devastation in her eyes was clear. "I've killed someone, Michael." Again. The silence between them was oppressive and crushing. "No," Michael replied, shaking his head. "No, that is not possible." "It is," Willow answered, her voice empty. "And it's worse than you think." Before Michael could react, the sound of sirens reverberated outside, becoming louder with each second. Willow flinched, her whole body tensed. "They're coming," she said quietly. Michael glanced toward the window, dread building in his stomach. "For whom?" Willow met his eyes, her face devastated. "For me?" The knock on the door came shortly later. Firm, authoritative, and inevitable. "Please." Dante's voice cried out. "Willow Tait, we need to speak with you." Michael stared at Willow, divided between instinct and devotion, love and terror. She reached for his hand and gripped it fiercely as if to attach herself to the only solid object left in her universe. "I never wanted to be this person," she admitted softly. "But I am, and now everyone will know." Michael swallowed hard as he placed her hand back, his heart breaking in ways he had never imagined possible. The door opened, bringing with it the tenuous illusion that Willow's secrets could remain hidden. As Dante came inside, his eyes met Willow's, and he knew right away. Whatever story she'd told previously, whatever lies had kept her safe were now ended. The truth had finally hit home. The most surprising revelation was yet to be revealed. Dante's voice was calm, almost soothing, yet the weight behind it was overwhelming. "Willow, we need you to come with us." Willow nodded slowly, as if her body moved solely on instinct. She let go of Michael's hand, and the separation of their fingers felt like another form of death. Michael rushed forward quickly, his voice. "You don't have to say anything without a lawyer." She smiled, sorrowful yet grateful. "It's too late for that," she said quietly. "I've been silent for too long." As she was let out, the hallway lights were excessively bright. Every step echoed, leading her further away from the life she had battled so hard to create. Nurses, neighbors, and strangers, their faces blended together as whispers followed her like shadows. Willow kept her gaze forward, willing herself not to peek back or search for Michael's face again. If she did, she may crack altogether. At the station, the truth was gradually revealed. The second victim was not a stranger as many people suspected. Willow had trusted someone who had found the truth about Harmony and threatened to report it to the police. The confrontation had escalated out of control with fear-feeding panic until there was no turning back. This time there was no accident to hide behind. There's no mercy to justify it. When the complete narrative was revealed, even Dante felt a chill. "You've been living in survival mode for so long," he remarked gently. Willow's eyes welled up with tears, as she stated, "But this crossed a line." "I know," she replied. "And I hate myself for it." News of her confession swept around Port Charles. Na was distraught, falling from the weight of guilt and despair. Michael retreated into silence, his feelings for Willow clashing forcefully with the horror of what she had done. Carly was filled with wrath and despair, torn between protecting her family and confronting the truth. The most crushing blow, however, came with the final revelation. The person who had driven Willow over the edge, unknowingly sealing their own doom, was someone with extensive ties to the Corinthos family, someone whose murder would have far-reaching consequences, breaking friendships and reigniting old vendettas. As Willow was escorted to a holding cell, she finally let out her tears. Not for herself, but for everyone she had wronged, every lie she had told, and the woman she could have been if fear had not devoured her. She put her head on the chilly bars and closed her eyes. The nightmare no longer involved someone following her from behind. With nowhere to hide, she was forced to face it full.